afternoon, viewers. This is Diaspora Network Television, and it's time for a news update at 12 with me, Said Hamdia. Coming up, formal ban on noise making and drumming starts today. NCA shuts down 3 more pro-NDC radio stations. In business, selling $60 million Commander Sugar Factory for $12 million is fraud, says Haruna Idrisu. In the diaspora, Ghanaian Uber driver arrested in Pittsburgh. In world news, Sweden expected to announce a decision on rape case against Julian Assange today. These and more on sports and entertainment will come your way shortly. Do stay. Some local stories: the annual ban on drumming and noise making within the jurisdiction of the Ga and Englishi Alata Traditional Council in the Greater Accra region takes effect from today, Monday, May 13th. It will span for a period of 1 month, ending on Thursday, June 13th.
A press release signed by Gilbert Ni Ankra, the head of public affairs for the Accra Metropolitan Assembly, last week urged all villages and towns under the Ga and English Yalata Traditional Council to comply with the ban. The AMA has set the following guidelines to ensure full compliance with the directive for the purpose of peace, harmony and national security. During the period of the ban, the noise level of the usual form of worship should be confined to the premises of churches or mosques, the barest limit possible. Religious bodies and the traditional authorities must show respect for one another and restrain their followers from making derogatory remarks about the beliefs and practices of one another. Roadside evangelists and positioning of loudspeakers outside are not permitted during the period of the ban. A site-identifiable task force consisting of AMA personnel, police service and representatives from the Traditional Council with tags, "No person should be seen enforcing the abatement of noise in the metropolis." The 1-month-long ban is a custom that precedes the celebration of the Homo Festival of the Chiefs and People of Gamashi.
Now, the National Communications Authority has closed down 3 more radio stations in an exercise it began last Thursday.
Nananom FM, said to be owned by a Sutifi South Member of Parliament and a former Works and Housing Minister, Collins Dauda. Genesis FM, owned by NDC stalwart and 2-time Council of State member Nana J. Ampofu, both in the Ahafo regional capital town of Gorso, were closed on Friday for breaching license regulations. Sekpele FM at Likpe in the Oti region was also closed down on Friday. Although the NCA has said that exercise will be conducted throughout the country without restriction to ensure that all FM stations in the country meet the laid-down licensing rules, it has been accused of acting in bad faith. The owner of Genesis FM, Nana J. Ampofu, said in an interview that his outfit had paid all fees required to pay, so the shutdown comes as a surprise. "We offered to pay 8,500 Ghana cedis, which is what ought to be paid as spectrum fees and regulation fees. They returned our check saying that we have not renewed our licenses. We told them that our application was pending before them. As we speak, our application has been before them for almost 2 years. About 2 months ago, they allowed us to resume transmission and told us to pay the 8,500, which we paid the same day, and then surprisingly, they shut us down," he added. The NCA came under attack last week after shutting down Radio XYZ and Radio Gold, both pro-opposition FM stations, over issues concerning their licenses. Both stations claimed that they had been making efforts to get their licenses renewed, but the NCA failed to attend to them.
Moving on, Justice Ajakuma, the young man who lost his eyes during a Let My Vote Count demonstration in September 2015, has died.
Some members of the Let My Vote Count Alliance clashed with the police during the demonstration exercise to demand new voters register in the run-up to the 2016 general elections. The police, in their bid to restore peace and order, released rubber bullets, tear gas and water cannons on the protesters who were demanding the compilation of a new voters register before the general elections. Several people sustained injuries, including Justice Ajakuma, who lost one eye. Minister for Communications at the time, Omane Buama, accused the young man of applying tomato puree on the eye to court public sympathy, an unfortunate comment that was immediately hushed by several NDC communicators on various platforms. The then presidential candidate of the New Patriotic Party, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, hailed the young man, describing him as a true patriot. He expressed his deepest sympathies to Justice Ajakuma and his family, who he said had sacrificed so much for the common cause of Ghana. Confirming the sad news, convener of pressure group Let My Vote Count Alliance, Mr. David Asante, said, "This morning I was invited to a hospital at Malam in Accra, where Justice my brother was pronounced dead. Painful as it was, we take consolation in the fact that our brother served his generation well, and his name will be remembered as a gallant soldier who fought well for the consolidation of our electoral process and our democracy."
That's all for our local stories. Coming up is business. Now, the minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, has described the Trade and Industry Ministry's planned sale of the Commander Sugar Factory as a rip-off.
The Tamale South legislator said the decision to sell the Indian government-financed entity defies logic and has the potential to damage the existing relationship between the two governments. First of all, when was a competitive bid placed for an assessment of it? Who did the technical assessment of it? The Minister for Trade and Industry must answer. What he is doing is not in the public's interest and not in the public good, the former Minister of Trade and Industry said on news analysis program Newsfile on Saturday. 3 years since its commissioning, the $35 million factory remains defunct. The president in September 2018 disclosed that government is in the process of finding a strategic investor to revive the debt-ridden and idle factory. According to him, the sale is due to serious deficiencies, including the unavailability of sugarcane in sufficient quantities in the catchment area. He also revealed that government has inadequate working capital required to make the factory functional. Subsequently, the Trade and Industry Minister, Alan Chamati, told Parliament in April this year that the factory will be sold to a new investor at a depreciated value of $12 million, but the minister under whose tenure the financing for the factory was sourced disagrees with the planned sale. Calling on government to halt the intended sale, Mr. Idrisu said it will be complete fraud if it is sold for $12 million. The Tamale South legislator said, contrary to reports that the factory cost $35 million to construct, the investment into the factory is estimated at $60 million. According to him, failure to resign the planned sale will also undermine public trust.
Moving on, Ghana has become the largest gold producer in Africa, toppling South Africa in a recent data released by the World Bank.
The data stated that Ghana exported 158 tons of gold in 2018, about 15% increase over the previous year. Ghana has thus dethroned South Africa, which produced 139.3 tons and returned to the high volumes of the 1980s. It said mining firms operating in the country include Newmont Mining Corporation, Goldfields, Anglo Gold Ashanti, and Asanko Gold. It noted rural communities in 4 regions of Ghana currently affected by the environmental damage and pollution associated with destructive artisanal mining and logging practices are to benefit from a scale-up of the Ghana Forest Investment Program. The World Bank approved this week an additional financing of $19.39 million to the program. China tops the global pact, followed by Australia, Russia, and the United States of America.
In our diaspora news, a Ghanaian Uber driver in Pittsburgh has been arrested on charges of kidnapping after he was accused of trying to lock two women in his car.
Richard Lomote is facing 2 counts each of kidnapping, false imprisonment and harassment. Lomote, the Uber driver, has also been identified as an assistant professor at the Pennsylvania State University's Beaver campus, according to a school spokeswoman. The Pittsburgh police alleged 2 women said they took an Uber with a male driver early Saturday. The driver commented on their looks and did not follow the GPS directions to the requested address. Eventually, the women told police the driver pulled over, put the car in park and said, "You are not going anywhere." He attempted to lock the doors, the women said, but one of them was able to open a door and escaped from the back seat, followed by the second woman, according to the police. Police were able to identify Lomote via the Uber app. Pittsburgh police spokesperson Chris Togneri said, adding that he was soon arrested. Court dockets show a preliminary hearing as the case is scheduled for May 23rd. An Uber spokesperson described Richard's action as unacceptable, admonishing that Uber had terminated the driver's access to the app and stands ready to cooperate with law enforcement to support their investigations. Christine Dwechner, the Director of Campus Relations at Penn State Beaver, has also disclosed that the allegations against Lomote, an Assistant Professor of Information Science and Technology, are deeply troubling, and we have revoked his access to campus as we look into the matter. This is obviously a criminal matter, and we cannot comment further, she added. Lomote did not immediately respond to a request for comments on Sunday.
That's all for our diaspora news. Coming up is some world news. Swedish prosecutors are set to announce whether they are reopening the inquiry into a rape allegation against WikiLeaks co-founder Julian Assange.
The investigation may be revived at the request of the alleged victim's lawyer. Assange, who denies the charges, has avoided extradition to Sweden for 7 years after seeking refuge at the Ecuadorian embassy in London in 2012. But the 47-year-old was evicted last month and sentenced to 50 weeks in jail for breaching his bail conditions. The US also wants to extradite Assange from the UK over his alleged role in the release of classified military and diplomatic material in 2010. Sweden's Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions, Eva-Marie Persson, is expected to announce her decision on whether to revisit the sexual assault investigation after it was dropped 2 years ago. Swedish prosecutors said at the time they felt they were unable to take the case forward while Assange was inside the Ecuadorian embassy. However, the woman who made the allegation now wants the case reopened, and since Assange's arrest last month, Ecuador abruptly withdrew its protection and invited the police to arrest him. Swedish prosecutors have been considering their options. Under Swedish law, they have until next year to pursue the case. If they do reopen the investigation, it is likely to raise the question of which extradition request should take precedence, that of Sweden or the US.
Now, Afghan politicians and women's rights activists are demanding justice after a prominent journalist and a political advisor was murdered in broad daylight.
Mina Mangal, who worked as a television presenter before entering into politics, was shot dead at close range in Kabul on Saturday. Chief Executive Abdullah vowed her killers would be caught. Investigations have begun, but it is still unclear who is behind her murder. In a statement released on Saturday, the Interior Minister said that Ms. Mangal, who was on her way to work as an advisor for the Afghan Parliament's Cultural Affairs Commission, was shot dead around 7:20 local time. Afghanistan's Supreme Court and civil society groups, including the Commission into Violence Against Women, have called for a serious investigation into her killing. Ms. Mangal had recently posted on Facebook that she had received threats and feared for her life. Prominent women's rights activist Wasma Frog said on Twitter.
That's all for our world news. Up next is entertainment. Ghanaian actress Diamond Appiah has threatened to sue the Despite group of companies for backing out on its word after the company promised to settle her if she stops her movie from premiering.
Diamond Appiah in October 2017 produced a movie titled Superstar, which was ready to be premiered in March 2018. The movie featured the name of the CEO of Despite Group of Companies, Dr. Osei Kwame Despite, and was alleged to be Dan to Anaheim. Due to Despite's name being used in the movie, management of Despite Group of Companies reached out to Diamond to cancel the movie and in return pay for the cost of production. This, according to management, is because Dr. Osei Kwame Despite wasn't happy his name, brand and company were used in the movie. By speaking in an interview, Diamond Appiah debunked the allegations, saying the movie had nothing to do with Despite, although a character in the movie bore Despite's name. According to her, she only agreed to cancel the movie out of respect she had for Despite and not because the movie was about him. But after a year of cancelling the movie, management of Despite Group of Companies have failed to fulfill its part of the bargain by paying her the cost of her movie production.
In sports, Black Stars and Atletico Madrid midfielder Thomas Partey was named the 2018 Sports Personality of the Year at the Sports Writers Association of Ghana Awards Night in Accra.
Thomas saw off competition from dethroned world boxing champion Isaac Dogbe and Confederation of African Football Deputy General Secretary Anthony Bafo. The 25-year-old is expected to play an integral part of Black Stars Africa Cup of Nations campaign in Egypt. He also won the Male Footballer of the Year award following a challenge from forwarders John Entry, who is on loan from Egyptian club Al Ahly, Kotoko goalie Felix Annan, Kasim Nuhu of German club Hoffenheim, and Joseph Adu of Genk in the Belgian First Division. For her splendid display at the recently held Under-17 Women's World Cup in Uruguay, Black maiden striker Mukarama Abdullahi was awarded the Female Player of the Year with competition from Black Queens Faustina Ampa and Black Princesses Grace Asantewa. International Boxing Federation Lightweight World Champion Richard Oblite Kome ruled over Isaac Dogbe for the Professional Boxer of the Year award, while Janet Amponsa and Silati scooped the Athlete of the Year award and Amateur Boxer of the Year, respectively. Boachi Danko of the Ghana Revenue Authority, who was in the same category with fellow hockey coaches Ebenezer Frimpong, emerged as the Coach of the Year award.
That's all for our news update. Before we go, let's take a recap of our top stories. Homowa ban on noise making and drumming starts today. NCA shuts down 3 more pro-NDC radio stations. In business, selling $60 million Commander Sugar Factory for $12 million is fraud, says Haruna Idrisu. In the diaspora, Ghanaian Uber driver arrested in Pittsburgh. In world news, Sweden expected to announce a decision on rape case against Julian Assange today. My name is Seydou Hamdia. Do follow us on our social media platforms for more news.